Hello, it's June the 27th. Welcome to Renew Every Morning. Today, our character that we're going to focus on in our little vignette series about learning love on the job is Barnabas, the one who saw grace. Well, Barnabas, I have to confess to you, is one of my favorite characters in the New Testament. I just love him and love everything about him. But this verse in Acts chapter 11, verse 23 is what I want to focus on for you. And listen to this for a statement. When he arrived, he saw what the grace of God had done, and he was glad and he encouraged them all. Now, this is amazing because what had happened is that the persecution had come, Acts chapter 8, the people had been scattered, and now what was happening is that the people that were going and moving out from Jerusalem, do you remember the gospel Jesus had said would come to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and even to the ends of the earth? And now we're at the ends of the earth. And what had happened is the Greeks had caught in. They started gossiping and talking about it. And this revival, this church revival thing had broken out in Antioch. And it wasn't authorized, by the way. That's an important thing to note. So Barnabas, that wasn't his real name. His birth name was Joseph. But the apostles called him Barnabas because Barnabas means son of encouragement. And by the way, you don't earn a name like that without deserving it. He was one of the most radiant figures in the early church, not because he stood center stage, but because he kept standing beside others. And he was one of those people that just believed in people when sometimes you don't believe in yourself. And we all need Barnabases, do we not? We all need somebody that's prepared to believe in us when we might not just get it ourselves. But the glorious things about him is he has a different spirit because he sees the grace of God. He saw what the grace of God could do and was glad. So now, when other people may be cautious, when other people may be suspicious, when other people start talking about false prophets and all the rest of it, he saw the grace of God and was glad. There'd been a Gentile revival in Antioch, as I'm saying, and Barnabas saw what others didn't. Barnabas saw grace. And he doesn't try to manage it. He doesn't try to police it. He doesn't write a policy for it. He saw it and he was glad. And he knew it needed to be freed. He knew it needed not to be restrained. And this phrase alone makes him rare. He saw the grace of God and he was glad. Most of us, I'm afraid, see the grace of God and are very suspicious, are very cynical. And now he moves in this wonderful super conscious insight. Here's the moment I love the most. The church in Jerusalem, head office, if you like, send Barnabas to assess the Antioch revival. Make a report, come back and tell us, and we'll send a team in. We'll do whatever we need to do. We'll kind of get the place in order, get some structure in it, get some religion in them, and make sure it's nice and buttoned up. But instead of returning to head office, he does something very controversial. He does something totally expected. He goes to Tarsus to find Saul. Now, these are Paul's forgotten years, as they describe them. These are years of his anonymity. He's 10 years nobody's seen from him from when he escaped from Jerusalem. He's gone as far as everybody else is concerned. Now, he's smart. He doesn't wait for permission. He doesn't default to hierarchy. He doesn't go up the chain and think, I better do what my boss says. No, he doesn't do that. He sees that something deep is at work. And he realizes through his super conscious awareness that Paul is the one who is uniquely called for this moment. At this point, Paul's still in the shadows. 10 years have passed since his last conversation. And most people have either forgotten him or are still afraid of him. But not Barnabas. He saw something nobody else saw. And he moves from being an intercessor to an inclusion architect. Barnabas was more than an encourager. He was an inclusion architect, as I'm saying. He stood in the gap. He stood in the gap for Saul when the apostles rejected him in Acts chapter 9. Paul said, no, he's a good guy. Saul said, no, he's a good guy. He was there with Mark when Paul dismissed him in Acts chapter 15. And for the Gentile believers, when others wanted them sidelined, Barnabas stood up for them and encouraged them. Barnabas didn't just believe in God, he believed in God's work in people, and that I love him for. And that's the mark of an intercessor. Intercession is not just prayer, it's advocacy. It's being an upstander, not a bystander. It's seeing someone's calling before it's clear. It's holding space until the time comes. And that's why Paul was so upset with Barnabas when there was that whole fuss in Antioch. And he says even Barnabas was carried away with the hypocrisy. Paul's saying that's how crazy it got up there when Peter and the Judaizers got involved. It was a mess. But these are some things about the Barnabas way that I want you to see. He encouraged and he didn't control. He doesn't try and micromanage anything. He doesn't try and micromanage the new believers. He encourages them to remain true to the Lord with all their hearts. That's it. Encouragement, trust the Spirit in other people. That's a very important thing to say, that the encourager knows that you can trust the Spirit in other people. He doesn't have a compass, doesn't have a map. He just followed his inner conviction, not an outer convention. Instead of going back to Jerusalem, he went forward to Tarsus. Love trusts the whisper, you see. He saw grace before it was obvious to anybody else. Barnabas saw God's hand. He knew his hand was on these people. These others had been overlooked by everybody else, but he knew it. And he took an outcast to meet the outcast. And love notices grace early and it celebrates it. He was willing to dim his light so that others could shine. And eventually you'll see in Acts that it shifts from Barnabas and Saul to Paul and Barnabas. And that transition, that pivot is no problem to Barnabas whatsoever. He never resists it. Love isn't afraid to step back. Spiritual practice, simple, see and be glad. Just take a few moments, just even when you are, just to reflect. Where is grace showing up in someone else's life that you can just be glad about it? Are you tempted to question it, or can you just rejoice in it? Who needs you to be a Barnabas for them today? And who will stand up and stand by somebody before they're successful? Maybe send a note, speak a word, do whatever you can. But be the rope that someone can cling to, would you? Barnabas shows us that love on the job is not about being first, it's about being faithful. He didn't write a letter in the New Testament, not a single line, but his fingerprints are on every single page. Why? Because he saw the grace of God and he was glad. And he went out of his way, not for power, but for partnership. And that I love. And that's it. That's what love in action actually looks like. Showing up for grace when it's not obvious and staying until it's fulfilled. Well, may you be encouraged, may you be strengthened, and may you be renewed today. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to be with me. Bye-bye for now.